Hello, good evening, Ryan Willard here, again on my midnight musings around the office. I am the host of the Business of Architects UK. I'm also director at TTHS Architects and TTHS Media Productions. That's another new thing that we've started doing. We're starting actually doing little bits of content production for other people, which is pretty exciting. Really into that. So keep tuned. I'll let you know how that goes. And I actually wanted to talk about content and what makes good content and what do I find interesting? What do you find interesting when, particularly, we'll keep it in the realm of social media here. We'll keep it in the realm of the digital internet context. What makes good content? And for me personally, the most engaging content is stuff that's very personable and stuff that's authentic. That's a word that you'll hear bandied around again and again and again. But what does that actually mean? What does authenticity mean? It's that, and particularly in the realm of social media, that good content needs to be relatable. And I think it's quite an interesting conversation. And I'm going to get my sister to talk about this because she works in marketing. She's worked in PR, and she does a lot of in-house marketing for large corporate companies. And also, I was chatting to another guy who was at dinner, and one of my clients in my architecture business is the consumer editor of The Sun, and brilliant, fascinating guy. And we went to his birthday dinner, and there was another one of his friends who was there, who was doing some form of PR, who runs his own sort of PR consultancy as well, and he works with a lot of large corporate entities, helping them with their marketing and their PR. And both my sister and him were talking about how large corporations are trying to engage with social media. And obviously, large corporate companies have very rigid structures and systems in place, and corporate identity and branding, and that it's very difficult to stray away from that. And they're always going to be, the old traditional form of advertising on the television as you tell people about the product. You talk about yourself. Again, this is really interesting. If you look at the shift of how advertisements has worked from the 50s to the 60s to the 80s, getting more creative, a bit more out there, the 90s, and then now on social media, there's a continued evolution of advertisements. But obviously, how large corporations want to engage with social media, which is so personal. It's all about reality. It's all about the authenticity. And part of the authenticity is sharing the mess. This was one of these dictums that I picked up from the Funnel Hacking Live conference a few weeks ago. But sharing your mess, sharing your story, sharing the kind of reality that's happening behind the offices. And obviously large corporate companies will not want to do that. And it's very difficult because they're, the bureaucratic systems, or there is larger systems in place that need to be, there needs to be all sorts of different types of approvals to allow that to happen. And hence why they start employing influencers and, because they can kind of tap into somebody's already existing world. And also, chatting to my sister and chatting to this guy, and they're both saying how large corporate companies, they really want to get involved in social media and they want to be using it more, but they're often approaching it with the same methodologies that they've adopted for television or that kind of traditional advertising, where it's a kind of crass interruption of your viewing pleasure with a very beautifully formed, well put together advert that is talking about a product or however it is that they've been discussing their narrative. Whereas on social media, you don't need high production values. You can get away with using your iPhone and walking around anywhere basically and telling that story. So what makes good content? I'd love to hear your opinions. I'd love to hear what you think makes great content. What kind of content do you like watching on YouTube, on Instagram, all these kinds of things? For me, as I said, I do really enjoy watching people tell their stories. I like watching people kind of make stories out of nothing. And I mean, personally, I find the stories that I make that get the most engagement are often the stories where I'm doing fuck all, really. For example, probably one of the most popular stories I've ever did on Instagram was I had to go and post a letter for something. I can't remember why. Probably some antiquated planning department. I had to go and post a letter, and it was a 45-minute kerfuffle, shall we say, of having to queue up and buy the envelope and the stamps and then post the letter. And anyway, I made it into a silly little video with bits of music and stuff like that, and it was kind of humorous, and it was very entertaining how, interesting rather, how much engagement that got and how it was kind of consumed. So, what makes good content? Let me know. Interested to hear your thoughts.